Yo, it's Austin, and welcome back to the month of Final Fantasy. Let's talk about some chocobos.
If you're familiar with the Final Fantasy franchise at all, I'm sure you know what a chocobo is. First appearing in Final Fantasy II, these cute little guys really became a mainstay. It's not hard to see why, just look at them. It's so cute! They were basically Final Fantasy's method of replacing the horse as your typical method of transportation. Not that horses are inherently bad, just, well, chocobos are awesome. Who needs an Epona or aggro when you got flying chocobos? Yeah, no one. That's what I thought. Even the morbidly obese chocobos are cute as fuck. I just want to poke his belly.
So as a celebration of all things chocobo related, let's take a look at a couple of games in the series.
Let's begin with Chocobo Dungeon 2. Have you ever played a mystery dungeon game? Like one of them Pokemon ones, Etrian, Nightmare of Duraga, or the Torneko games? Yeah, probably just the Pokemon ones. Well, they're all pretty much the same thing. They're kinda like different franchised theme parks. You got cheerful music, colors everywhere, the smell of piss and vomit vaguely in the air, it's great. Chocobo Dungeon 2 was actually my first exposure to this type of game. Basically, they're turn-based RPGs that take place on a grid. Anytime you move, so do the baddies. And what does that mean? Strategy. But what is it that makes Chocobo Dungeon so special? Well, if you're a fan of really deep I guess it's because it's Final Fantasy and, No, it's because it's the cutest thing ever. Just look at this opening cinematic. Just look at it. I'm not sure exactly what Square did, but they turned pre-existing characters like Moogle, Bahamut, and our titular hero into obnoxiously cute things. Everything is so bouncy and pudgy. If you don't fall in love with this style, you have to be dead inside. The story begins with our heroes Chocobo and Mog looking for treasure, and if the cuteness wasn't enough, they're also dirty thieves. The basic mechanics are pretty easy to grasp. You've got a melee attack that can only hit a target in a grid next to you, the ability to kick items like stones, and the usage of spells. You'll find plenty of items along the way to equip, such as new claws and saddles for little Choco, and suddenly we're swimming in loot. You're exploring this dungeon, knocking out little Final Fantasy critters left and right until you eventually meet up with this white mage named Sharoma. She's actually pretty useful and can heal you whenever things get tight, but sometimes it's not enough and you're gonna die. However, the penalty for death in these mystery dungeon games is pretty damn harsh. It varies from game to game, but in Chocobo Dungeon 2, you might retain your level and experience, but you lose every item, equipped or not. This blows, it really does. I know it's a part of the challenge and everything, but damn, every item? Sure, you can get a storage shed and place valuables for later use, but you're typically gonna take your best gear into the dungeons anyway. And what does that leave us with? Despair. So in order to avoid this rage-inducing fate, you gotta play carefully. Save up teleport items to flee when you're cornered, deposit anything that can help you in the future into storage, and grind a bit, do what you can. Too bad I hate playing it safe. It didn't work. Keep playing and make your way through, because you'll eventually meet Sid and get a tank. A fucking tank! Man.
The Chocobo Dungeon franchise would make a return in 2007 with the Final Fantasy Fables franchise hitting Nintendo consoles. We didn't get the DS version, but we did get the Wii one.
And man, did they fix every issue I had with the original. While it might suffer from some of that Japanese tutorial heaviness near the beginning, things will pick up quickly with a story interesting enough to keep you going. You play as Chocobo, of course, and you accompany the nerdiest rendition of Sid yet. While exploring the Tower in the Sands looking for a jewel to power an airship, the two of you stumble upon some baddies looking for the same thing. Suddenly, there's a massive beam of light that teleports you to the town of Memoria, but not before we get a cutesy J-pop number reminding us of the severity of the situation. 2 minutes into the story, the town bell rings and causes Sid to lose his memory, and Chocobo starts losing his shit. The Bell of Oblivion located here causes residents to forget memories for a reason they forgot. Picture that. Sharoma, now known as Shurma, pops up and drags Sid and Chocobo to her place as the people of Moria look in awe. It's actually kinda creepy. I don't like it. Not long after this, an egg falls like a meteorite from the sky and hatches a baby boy named Raffaello. He possesses the power to enter people's minds and retrieve their memories. Along with the egg, a necklace with a puzzle piece on it drops that allows Chocobo to do the same. If you can't tell, this game is Japanese as fuck, and I love it. With the improved visuals and fluidity of controls comes a more interesting experience. Everything I mentioned from Chocobo Dungeon 2 is back and then some. Now you have jobs that you can get as the game progresses, such as White Mage, Dragoon, Knight. It's pretty expansive and equally adorable. You still have to manage your health and hunger, but your HP and MP recover at a more rapid rate, and you can even hold down a button to wait in place, which causes the Chocobo to pace like a cutie pie. The equipable claws all look different, so you get a more visual representation of your strength. I felt inclined to get through the dungeons and recover the memories of the citizens of Memoria for the sole purpose of figuring out exactly what happened, even if some of these characters are just ridiculous.
I've been selling fish all my life, but I've never seen or heard of anything like this!
And let's not forget the big one. When you die, you drop everything but your equipped gear. The penalty for death isn't so tough anymore, so you feel more inclined to take risks. I mean, you're still gonna die a ton, but at least the setback isn't so extreme. It's like Square Enix listened to my prayers before I expressed them or even knew. There's also another game in the Final Fantasy Fables series called Chocobo Tales that's actually represented here. It's a card game. It's presented in this pop-up book fashion, and it actually plays really well. It's kind of similar to Magic the Gathering, as you use the power of the crystals to activate attacks on certain cards. The goal is to destroy the opponent rather than their cards, and it's surprisingly deep. Unfortunately, since Nintendo Wi-Fi is down, it's not possible to play this online with other players anymore, and missed the train on that one. The version of this on the Wii is strictly battles, but the DS version has a full story and exploration, which I have not gotten to experience. However, I'm sure one day I'll convince someone to play some Chocobo cards with me. Maybe you? Probably not. I heard you hate me.
Alright, what's next? Let's talk about some mobile games.
As a whole, Square Enix's mobile offering is an offering. Once you take up the $20 games, you're left with a couple of ports, free-to-play games, and Chocobo Panic. Chocobo Panic, or as I like to call it Arthritis, is a little cutesy casual game that plays like Twister for your fingers. I'm not even kidding. While the music might be recycled from other Final Fantasy games, the visual style is this simple pastel-looking thing. But how does it play? Like hell. Actually, it's pretty fun. So you have to hold on to multiple chocobos at the same time until you're told to release one finger. It really makes you think, and after a while, if you're being careless, your fingers will start to feel the stretch. There's a couple of difficulty settings and actually a competitive multiplayer mode that will likely end in slapfests. It's good stuff, especially for the price. While it's totally a casual game, sometimes that's all you need.
Look, we're not gonna get another chance to talk about this, so we might as well talk about Final Fantasy All the Bravest for just a second.
I'm sure you've heard of this stinky pile of shit. Final Fantasy All the Bravest is one of the most mindless and money-grubbing experiences that I've ever had. You look at the gameplay and you're like, oh man, that doesn't look so bad. I wonder what it plays like. Let me show you. This is actually literally it. You get gil and XP for beating monsters, but the gil doesn't do anything. XP just gives you new classes and more character slots. Items will drop at random. The game is built around you spending money. You can buy packs to visit worlds of Final Fantasy 7, 10, and 13 for $4 a pop, or spend $1 for a chance at a premium Final Fantasy character. Just $1, let's see what we get.
Bosch lives!
Hataraku Chocobo is a Chocobo game on the Wonder Swan color, but I can't read this shit. It looks like Harvest Moon and I want to play it so bad.
What's next? Fine.
Chocobo Racing is deceptive. It has that same cute style as the other PS1 title. The storytelling reminds me of Yoshi's story with the pop-up art. Clearly a ton of work was put into making these pretty cinematics for the time. There's some pretty decent original tracks and a plethora of remixes that all fit the style of a kart racer. Aesthetically, Square killed it. Well, then what's the problem? Everything else! I'm like 96% positive that the developers figured that the ability to turn left and right would make the game too easy, and just removed it. Half of my time playing Chocobo Racing was spent facing a wall or falling off of a cliff, and when I wasn't, I was easily blasting past the competition and blowing people up because the AI forgot how to play. Also, despite the game having the same art style of Chocobo Dungeon, it's twice as horrendous looking. It's so muddy, and the lines in the tracks make it look like everything is falling apart from some sort of earthquake. I mean, sure, look, Fat Chocobo's a cutie poo, but then you play the fucking game and you're like, what is this fresh hell? I love kart racers. They're one of my favorite genres, and I've played so many of them. Chocobo Racing is not a good one. Sure, there's a lot of replayability with tons of unlockable characters like Squall and Bahamut, but you want to know how to unlock these characters? You beat the story mode, a total of 10 times for everything. 10 times? Why? And what is the story? A bunch of nonsense. Actual, literal nonsense. It starts as Sid wanting to give Chocobo some jet blades for racing purposes, and before we know it, Bahamut is threatening to sever the link between Fantasia and the outer world, places I didn't even really pay attention to in the first place. It's kind of pointless, especially when you're forced to play through it a total of 10 times to unlock all the content. There couldn't be anything special or different, just repeat the process. I don't feel like anyone with time to spend on better games that came out before this, such as Mario Kart 64, are going to sink the tens of hours necessary just to unlock some characters. I sure as hell didn't, especially not when that means I have to sit through this Chocobo adult alternative ass ending song 10 times. No. This all feels like a very cheap tie-in to capture that sweet, sweet Mario Kart market, and it failed miserably. Your actions don't really feel like they have any impact. You can barely tell if you're bumping into another player, and when you reach the edge of a cliff, you're suddenly dead without any realization. Even though I'm a sucker for Final Fantasy, Chocobo Racing failed to capture me. Instead, what we got was a bad game.
Whoever owned this before me must have felt the same way, because this is just a CD jewel case with a disc in it and like a piece of paper with the cover on it. Does anyone even care about this game? I hate Final Fantasy.
So you think you can ride this Chocobo